How do you do?
How do you do?
I'm good. I hope they told you what happened. We had the Kiwanis K-Day yesterday, which is a charitable broadcast, and so that was on for Monday and all this. But yeah, so you've got a pretty big. Talk to you a little bit about the Norse coming in and going from there. And thank you for last time. Getting me. We now know what the conference they're in. I'm glad to get that settled down. Anyway, I'm living in the past right now. Let's see here what we have. I'm just looking through. What else is new with you? Anything fun? How was the? I'll ask you about the tournament you attended up in New York City. I know you can't speak with specific recruits, but I am kind of curious about that.
Sure.
And seeing that, I said that was one of the things. In fact, I'm going to write this down. We're on Facebook Live, by the way. We've got some things, so they can now see me. It's sort of like one of those radio shows. They do it from the studio, which I think is kind of boring to watch. But
like Mike and Mike, or,
exactly, I've always thought that was a little boring to watch, but. They can now see this handsome face of mine, so they can't complain about that. Anyway, here we are. Let's do this. They actually were hearing that conversation, too. Talking about who the Tennessee football coach should be. 2 years ago, this guy came to ETSU. Hasn't looked back. A couple of 24-win-plus seasons, an NCAA tournament berth, and the Bucs again starting off, even though they return only one returning starter, they have a winning record as we speak. I'm speaking, of course, to Steve Forbes, the head basketball coach at ETSU, head men's basketball coach here on Tri-City Sports Now. What with me, Marky Billson, and tomorrow's game, the Northern Kentucky come in. Opening day of the season, had some people scratching their chins. They just lost by 19, they being ETSU, to this team here almost a month later, I guess. Tell me a little bit, Steve Forbes, how has your team changed since the first time you've played the Norse up there in Northern Kentucky?
Well, that's a great question, Marky. And the first thing I told our team this week was this will be a really good barometer for us to see where we're at a month, after we played them in our opening game. And the one area that I hope that is improved is turnovers. The very first game against them, we had 2 assists and 18 turnovers. I've never coached in probably 29 years. I don't think I've ever coached a game with that big a disparity between assists and turnovers. It should be the other way around. It should be 18 assists or maybe 2 turnovers. But that was a major league problem. And so we have done a better job of getting that under control. It's not exactly where I want it to be yet, but we've shown steps in doing that. And an example would have been, our win at Fordham last week on Wednesday when, we turned it over 13 times in our first half against a team that's third in the country in steals. But we only turned it over 3 times in the second half, and we shot nearly 60% from the field, and that made a huge difference. We didn't shoot the ball well against Northern Kentucky, and we didn't take care of the ball, and that's a bad recipe, to win a game.
What was your take on that Fordham game? Because when I was watching it, I know you fell down early, as you said, the turnovers. But at the end of the day, I said that was an impressive victory, in my opinion. Well, I don't think you're going to disagree with me, to tell you the truth, but no, it was. I was impressed with it because in time it was sort of like slow and steady wins the race. There was a constant progression. You mentioned the lack of turnovers. And, at the end of the day, I said, that was a good victory. And I think a lot of people look at last year's game against Fordham and say, oh, boy, there's 20 points odd difference right there. But what were your take of that Fordham game?
Well, it was a good win, and it was a little dysfunctional, where, we went up there without David Burrell, who's a starter. He's out with surgery, minor surgery. So we started a freshman, Bo Hodges, and he had 20 points and 9 rebounds. And, I was proud of our team because we had to play some dysfunctional lineups to win the game. It was hard to play Peter, and had to adjust our team to what they were doing. And I thought our guys did a really good job of doing that. And listen, anytime you go on the road and win, it's a good win. And, we're not playing neutral site games, as you know, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Duke, Carolina, these guys, they don't ever play a really true road game. Now, Carolina is going to Tennessee. I give them credit for that. I think coming up in another week. Majority of these guys don't do that. They play neutral site games. We play true road games. Those are hard to win and hard to play. So I was happy with the way our team responded, and especially in the second half, the way we took care of the ball.
Well, let me ask you about that. You mentioned neutral site games, but is it practical? I mean, I know there are tournaments one can play. I can remember ETSU playing in Hawaii, that sort of thing, in a period of time. But, if let's just say that you were to play, Northern Kentucky, ETSU at a neutral site, that probably isn't going to sell as many tickets as North Carolina is. I mean, we both know that. So,
no question.
Yeah. So how practical is it for you to play neutral site games?
Well, it is if it's a tournament. For us last year, we went to Stanford, Pentagon, in South Dakota, played Milwaukee, Irvine, and South Dakota State, all basically a neutral court. South Dakota State, you could probably argue that was a home court for them. It's really close to their campus. But for us, a tournament is how we would do. You're right. I mean, it makes no sense for us to play, Northern Kentucky neutral side. It's not going to sell any tickets. You're right. Now, when I was at Tennessee, we would always play one game in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
We would play Middle in Nashville. We played Western Kentucky in Nashville. We played Murray State in Nashville. Now, is that a neutral site game? To be honest with you, when they had Courtney Lee at Western Kentucky, when I was at Tennessee, West Kentucky probably has as many fans there as we did because Bowling Green's really close to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Could we get a game like that? I'd love to. Could we play Virginia Tech and maybe in Roanoke? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. That'd be something I would love to be able to do. But for us to play a mid-major team in a neutral site makes no sense.
Sure. We're talking to Steve Forbes. He's the head basketball coach at ETSU. David Burrell, you talked about missing the Fordham game, and Bo Hodges, who I know is the player you're very high on bringing in, a rare four-year player, I guess, one of your recruits, as a matter of fact. But is Burrell healthy? Can he play against the Norse?
David's back. He practiced yesterday for the first time, and he'll be ready to go. He had some minor surgery last week and was forced to miss one game, but he's back. And having David and Bo at that position has really has helped our team. Now, honestly, I didn't really go into the season wanting to play Bo at a small forward or at a four-man, like a small forward or power, whatever you want to call it. That was where Jerome Rodriguez was going to play, but because of his injury, we've had to adjust. And Bo's done a really good job as a freshman, a phenomenal job as a freshman playing and learning two positions.
Well, what is his role coming on? Because I know in an earlier game he only had a handful of minutes. Now you started him, he scores 20 points. I can't imagine you're going to try to hide him on the bench here for the rest of the way out.
No.
What can we look forward to seeing out of Bo Hodges here in the future?
Well, I think Bo's a really, he's an aggressive player. He doesn't play with any fear, Mark. He can score off the dribble. He can score, shooting a mid-range jumper around the basket. He's really athletic. He hasn't shot the three very well yet. I think he will in time, but just to be an aggressive, confident player, and he's a guy that can play, that four spot when we're playing smaller, and he's a guy that can play the wing, play the three when we're playing a little bit bigger, and so his versatility is something that I've been very impressed with, and he's a really good defender. He can guard.
Well, it's ETSU, Northern Kentucky. They play at Freedom Hall tomorrow. And the next chance to see the Bucs, by the way, at home would be Sunday at 2 p.m. against Hiawassee, which, tell me about Hiawassee, the Tigers. Now, this is a team that I'm not at all familiar with. Where are they from? I've never heard of them, and I know that sounds terrible for me because I take pride in knowing what the small schools are. Where'd you find these guys, Coach?
I don't know. No, it's Hiawassee's down there. I think, I don't know, a non-Division I game, and we, to fill our schedule to get enough home games. The Southern Conference says we have a rule that says we can play 2 non-Division I games. That's all of us in our league. Now, some schools kind of skirt that and play 3. I don't do that. The honest truth is, I would prefer not to play any, but I wouldn't get enough home games then for our fans. And so I have to play these 2 games to get 2 more home games. And so we play Hiawassee this year. We play Tusculum. Some schools in the South, when they play 4, I don't see any benefit in that. But, for us just to get enough home games, we have to play these games.
Okay, let's go back to the Northern Kentucky. Like I said, you mentioned you want to cut down on turnovers and all this, but tell me a little bit about where you are going to come from this game after this. What are you looking for? I mean, obviously you're looking for a victory, cutting down on turnovers and all this, but this is a team that beat you by 19. So what are other things that you're looking for progression from your team from the first time you played this team?
Yeah. Well, we got to do a lot better job guarding the big kid, Drew McDonald, and he's a really good player, and he's the preseason player of the year in their league. And he is the type of big man that causes our team problems because he is a guy that can play with his back to the basket and he can shoot threes. Over half of his attempts on the season are from 3, but he's their 5-man. And so you have to be able to find him in transition, and you can't run. Most big guys want to run back to the paint and stand there. You can't do that against him. You have to find him at the three-point line because he can really shoot the ball, and he's mobile. And so we've got to do a lot better job defending him. I thought because of those turnovers, they got, defensive transition wasn't very good, but a lot of those turnovers led to live ball, just easy baskets, and it's hard to defend those. So, I go back again to taking care of the ball. I think offensively, too, we were disjointed. We didn't move the ball, Mark. We didn't share it, which our teams have always done that. We just made 1 pass, 2 pass, and tried to go make a play. It was very out of character for our team on offense. So I will be very mindful of us moving the basketball, sharing the basketball. Now, they're really good. They're ranked 11th in the country in the mid-major poll. They've only lost 2 games. They lost a tough battle against Vermont by 1, and they lost, I think, in overtime at Memphis. And so they've got a nice team. And, we're going to have to play well to beat them. I expect us to play well, but it's going to be a hard-fought game.
Was playing Fordham, who I know you spoke of, how they gave a lot of pressure, full court. And I told you about this in a previous interview, how I remember one real bad turnover under the basket. I just was, oh boy, you know what I'm talking about here. But is Fordham the sort of team what kind of, how should I say, preparation does playing a Fordham give you for playing a team like Northern Kentucky, which, was able to beat you on both sides of the court the previous time?
Yeah, it's a little different, even though they both pressure. Fordham puts a little bit more pressure on you in the half court. They gamble a little bit more trap-wise and deny-wise in the half court. Northern Kentucky picked us up full court. Now, it wasn't a true, zone pressure. It was just man-to-man. I didn't think it was... It's the same type of pressure we used at Wichita. Basically, we just picked you up to see if you turn it over, just kind of test you. I didn't think it was a real aggressive, tough press. And so that's why I was really disappointed. And so we got to handle that. And then we got to get in our offense and get right to it and flow. We've been working on it, and we've had more time to work on it, but we'll see, when the lights come on. And Fordham gave us a good work against pressure because that's what they do. And, now, it's kind of all or nothing with Fordham, because you can beat the pressure, you're going to get a great shot. And we shot 60%. Northern Kentucky's not that kind of team. They're going to press you up front, but then they're going to get back, and they guard very well in the half court. So we're going to have to beat the pressure, and then we're going to have to handle the ball in the half court, and we're going to have to move the ball and get good shots and make it.
So a lot of ball movement. Hey, when are finals at ETSU?
Next week.
Next week. Okay.
Next week. Yeah, we play Sunday. Then we got a week. We play, and then we won't play till Saturday at Xavier, and so we've got a week there for finals.
the reason I asked this is I can remember, under Murray Bartow, your predecessor, a circumstance, and this kind of reminds me as you go up to play Xavier, that there was finals week, and right after finals they traveled up to Syracuse and just got smashed. I mean, you just couldn't expect, after final there wasn't any time to practice. What's your schedule like then? I mean, are you going to travel to Cincinnati on Friday, or how does that work with finals?
Well, it's the same. It's the same way like last year. We had finals ended on, Friday, Thursday, Friday, and then we bust to Dayton and played Dayton. It'll be the same type of schedule. I don't know our schedule as far as practice this next week because we're just putting together all of our guys' tests. Normally, our guys will be done by the end of the week, and by Friday it'll be, we'll get up and leave and practice, and it'll be a normal travel. But the middle of the week will be a little odd because we won't be able to probably practice at normal time. We'll have to figure out a time when everybody can make it without getting in the way of a test or studying.
Okay, well, Steve Forbes has got his team with one starter back with a winning record again, 4-3, but now Stern challenge. Can the Bucs win the rematch against Northern Kentucky? We'll find out tomorrow. Steve Forbes, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Look forward to it next week. Tri-City Sports Now comes back. More talk. College football, coaching search. You know what that's a big story. Tri-City Sports Now. Again, thanks a lot here. I appreciate it. And, by the way, when are you practicing?